I feel like last time for those of you guys that don't know, make sure to go check out Mr. Smith's podcast. Mm-hmm. You remember what number that was?
62.
Wow. Number 62. So it was a long time ago. I feel like a lot has changed since then. Speak to us a little bit about what the Lord's been doing in your life and just some of the transitions and things like that in your life.
Yeah, bro. The most beautiful thing is just been learning what it means to be his son. Is it this way? Is this? Oh, let me turn it this way. Is that better?
Mm-hmm. Either way.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, learning what it means to be, learning what it means to be his son, man. To give like a quick explanation, I grew up going to church, but also genuinely knowing the Lord from a young age. Like absolutely saved at a young age, but still, I grew up with the mindset of that was very performance based, and like I had to prove myself to God, not for salvation, but just like to prove my I guess worth to Him in a sense. Like, am I doing? I'm doing enough. Am I a good enough Christian? Am I a good enough believer? Am I doing what you say? All that stuff, which is good. Obedience is beautiful. Like, obedience is better than sacrifice. God desires our obedience, but not more than He desires just relationship with us first. And so I had this foundation that was built more on what I could do for God, and how much I loved Him. Like, just, it was kind of like a misplacing of the two greatest commandments: to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, love your neighbor as yourself. Two greatest commandments. Putting those above everything else, though. What I mean by that is the number one thing should be understanding that we are loved by God first. It was His love that moved first. It's not my love that allows me to have a relationship with Him. It's the fact that He loves me. He's like, just like an infant child when they're born, there's nothing they can do for their parent. Their parents loved them first. They brought them into the world. Any good parent is going to shower their child with love. And so learning what that means in some really cool ways. That's just like the overview.
What do you feel like that comes from? Because a lot of people, deal with that same performance, and I love that you prefaced it, not so much from a salvation standpoint, but from like a relationship standpoint, where it's like I'm having to prove myself to God. Obedience is good, definitely be obedient, all that stuff. But there's a place where you can like, just get so performance based. Where do you think that comes from?
Multiple things, man. Like, I think just our culture in America is very performance based with school, earning praise through what we do, how good our grades are, how we behave, all this other stuff, rather than just being like, yo, you're a great kid. I love you so much. Like, I'm so glad you're here. Just like that. Sports. Performance is tied to identity with sports. Like, if we're growing up playing basketball, if I had a great game, I felt great, but if I had a bad game, then that says something about who I am, whether I realize it or not. It's like I attach it to my value. If I perform poorly, then I feel poorly. Feel poor? I don't know. Feel one of the two, you know what I mean? And then that would be how I think about myself. And then I think the biggest thing, honestly, and I understand this much more now, just knowing more about my dad's story and where he came from, how he was raised, and the lack of relationship with his father. But the way that my dad raised me was very, very much from a performance-based mentality, where I felt like I had to earn time with him, earn conversations with him, and just always be questioning, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough for him, for his pleasure, for his love, for his affirmation? And that directly is like translated into my walk with the Lord. But yeah, in the past 4 years, especially these past several months, I've just been really going deeper and understanding that I get to wake up every morning and receive the love of God without having to do anything. And then from that, I'm encouraged to go and do and live out what He's calling me to do. And I'm desiring, I get to be obedient to a God who loves me.
Yeah, and I think even like for Miles, something that I remember the first conversation that we had I think it was like around here, somewhere, and some of the things that you were just coming out from and then growing in. How would you kind of recap, from, what was it, last August. Maybe? From last August until now, along that same conversation of it not being performance-based, it being receiving the Father's love, and then from there living that out.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah, that's a wild journey. It's definitely like coming in, in August, I was totally in survival mode. Like a dog straight out of, the kennel. Like, just like, yo, don't trust nothing. I don't know what's going on. Y'all leave the doors unlocked a little too much for my liking, it was definitely like, I was being introduced to a lot of these concepts and how, like, God loves you, period. And I was like, okay, like, I could know this stuff in my mind, but I didn't understand, and I was growing to where I am now, which is growing into living out from the heart of this relational life where everything's in the process. Everything is, because I'll say even now, like, I talked to somebody earlier at the lake about this, and it was hitting me that, like, how much, like, the Lord has been changing where I'm living from to more, from His love for me, starting waking up and just saying, I'm loved by you. I'm loved by you. Like, wow, I'm loved by you. And then recognizing, with my manager, like, feeling like I don't want to text him for anything until I have songs ready to send him. Or with God, how I'm like, look how much I let you love on me. And going from there, it's like, is that enough? Am I letting you love on me enough for you so I can experience that love? And so, like, going through the process of being okay with, I feel like this is where I am now. It's like going through this process of being okay and admitting where I'm still in performance mode. And I feel like that is where I'm experiencing the most beauty of the freedom of being in His Son and not having to perform. Is when I'm able to admit where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is where it's still at. It's still here. Can we walk with me through this? And not cowering it or covering it with shame and not even talking about it, and then denying it and blinding myself.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but like with us being able to spend the weekend at the Axel Intensive, like one of their drivers, and I mean, we've had Axel on too. Check out episode 77. But
wait, pause. You got these joints memorized.
If you,
He's so
like,
IG.
I definitely don't with all of them, but like definitely the impactful ones, like Axel for sure. But like, yeah, whenever you editing them, and then just like, all right, gotta upload this, all that. And it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
what's that for, bro?
Oh no, I gotta get a drink.
Yeah, get your drink from your Whataburger. Get your Powerade.
Yeah.
Energy.
He couldn't do the math. He couldn't do the math because that's the
true.
spirit of comparison.
Spirit of comparison. We don't want that. We don't want that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want you to have freedom in that.
I appreciate that.
Amen.
I need
Amen.
deliverance.
But in that one of their drivers, as an organization, is His presence over performance, and in that, it's interesting because I think I'm going to try to articulate this. I've been experiencing this to a degree, but I think obviously the Lord is always present, like when we're around, and His omnipresence is with us. But there's a different level of His presence that comes in, and there's a different awareness of His presence whenever we come from a place of sonship and come from a place of receiving His love, rather than something like striving for Him to like be there and thinking the only way that He would be there in a way that we would feel it in a like transcendent spiritual way is if we like earn His presence to be there. Like almost if like we're playing a sport, we think that the only way that our Father would actually go to our games is if we played well. Right. But the fact of like a good father is like, all right, I'm there regardless. Like I'm there whether I'm the coach, I'm there whether I'm in the stands, I'm there whether you're playing good, I'm there whether I'm not. But in that, sometimes, even if like they're there consistently, like the Lord is, we might blind ourselves to their presence because of our shame and thinking that, oh, if I make any sort of eye contact with my dad, like immediately the disappointment is going to like come up in my soul. I'm just like, dang, like I let him down, so I'm not even going to like look at him in that point. Yeah. But before that even comes up, if we come from a place of like, of having that confidence of like, hey, yeah, Father, you do love me, and you love me purely because I'm your son, not just because of what I can do for you. And it's funny because anything that we could do for him is empowered by his spirit, the spirit of his son anyways. But he doesn't love us because of what we can do for him, because he loves us because of what we do. And both ideas are held true at the same time, because like this verse that came up yesterday that is really, really encouraging to me for some things that are going through life right now is Hebrews 6:10, if I remember correct. Thank you, Holy Spirit. For God is not so unjust as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name and serving the saints, as you still do. And in that, it's just like, yeah, like both at the same time, like he sees like the good things that we do. He can acknowledge that. He can encourage us in that, but at the same time, that's not necessary to a degree. I don't know.
Yeah. It seems like Chaz getting slapped right now, so I'm gonna let him.
Yeah. Bro, I was just thinking about my childhood, man. Like,
your dad ain't go to games?
Nah, he would, but it was like, it would be like, if I didn't play well or perform well, then after, it's just like, yeah, just the disappointment and disapproval. And it would feel like there was I couldn't comprehend it or articulate it this way back then, but it felt like my performance put a block or a divide in my relationship with him. Yeah. And so you were mentioning like, you mentioned something earlier about not wanting to make eye contact or something like that.
Yeah, not wanting to make eye contact with your dad if you're not playing well.
Yeah. Yeah, or because there's something else you said. If you're not playing well, because you don't want to feel the shame.
Yeah.
There was another thought I had along the lines of that, but yeah, I don't know. That just was hitting me, bro, because it reminded me of some specific times when like I did not perform well, and then but my performance seemed to have a negative effect on my relationship. Like it was on my shoulders. My closeness and intimacy with him was directly linked to how good I can be, how well I can do something. Yeah, bro. So I was just like, sheesh.
Thanks, bro.